Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. It's good to see everyone here in the middle of the summer. We invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Superintendent?
No, sir.
Okay, no comments. So approval of minutes of our last regular board meeting. We have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any questions, clarifications? Hearing none. Did I hear any? No. Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Citizens' comments. Is that correct? Yes. Good. We're glad to see that we have some members of the community signed up tonight. Now, also, it's always nice to see our former colleague, Marlon Lee. And Ms. Lee, it looks like two people have yielded their time to you, Dan Hart and Linda Coyle-Myers-Hart. Yes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Ms. Lee, the floor is yours.
Mr. President and the members of the Board of Education, on July 7th, we received a proposed email copy of the retiree vision and dental plans from the superintendent. Two previous brainstorming sessions with Dr. Gibson allowed us to share ideas from our respective positions. We appreciate that several of our suggestions from those meetings were included in the retiree benefits plan as outlined by the superintendent, which has now been mailed to all retirees. Those suggestions were, since some retirees did not follow a consistent pattern of payment and were paying every month and then every 3 months or so forth, it made sense that the retirees should limit the number of ways to pay their respective premiums. We asked for 3 options of payment, and those were granted: monthly, semi-annual, and annually. We agree that our canceled checks or money orders can serve as our receipt of payment in view of a time consideration to board employees collecting our payments. We agree that employees paying cash be asked to use money orders, and the superintendent agreed that the board office would work with these individuals as there's only a few of them. And we ask that a database of monthly payees who wish to receive a phone call reminder from the automated robocall be granted, and it too was listed in the superintendent's plan. However, some of the suggestions were not granted, and we feel strongly that one feature of the superintendent's plan is not retiree-friendly. That feature is dismissal on the second time a retiree misses a payment in the same plan year. In actuality, dismissing on the second time is really only allowing one time to make an error. In other words, as our students would say, a retiree is really only allowed one do-over to correct their error. Our concern is that because we are retirees and now face many medical issues for ourselves and our families, it is conceivable in a time of crisis that benefit reminders may not be intercepted at the right time or even by the right people. When families are facing hospice issues, it is understandable that attention is given to loved ones and that some business matters become secondary. It's also conceivable that holidays, flu season, or even the mail service could cause an issue. These types of circumstances can and do occur, and the result would be that you are forever penalized. I cannot imagine that the intent of the board is to punish the retiree, but rather work toward a favorable solution for all parties. In our society, it seems that the rule is more the 3 strikes rather than the 2. 2 strikes and you are out is punitive and does not indicate a reciprocal working relationship. In fact, it appears as a means of phasing out retirees from these benefits. Our other concern is that it's been mentioned at least 3 times, once in a board meeting and now in letter form, that there may be a future administrative fee for handling these benefits for the retirees. We would like to make it a matter of public record that this is not acceptable for all of the reasons we've mentioned in previous board meetings. Jefferson County did issue these benefits to retirees as a measure of good faith and principle. To erode that historical premise would be detrimental to the efforts of past individuals who worked so hard to better relationships in our county. The retirees gave much to the system and to the children of Jefferson County, and it's our hope that we would receive the same respect and treatment from this administration as we've received from other administrations of the past. It's our hope that the board does not plan to approve an administrative fee next spring for the retiree vision dental benefits. Yes, we are aware of budget restraints. We heard those same arguments, and that resulted in the strike of 1990. And because we lost 3 days' pay in 1990, we feel we've given up much for this county and its future, and thus we would view any administrative fee as unfavorable. Again, we want to thank the superintendent, Dr. Gibson, for meeting with us and allowing those brainstorming sessions to produce viable results, and for suggesting a review in several months of this plan. And we want to thank you, members of the Board of Education, for allowing us to share our concerns, our thoughts, and for working with us to ensure that these benefits continue to exist to retired school employees in Jefferson County.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. You know from sitting on this side of the dais that since this item is not on the agenda, the board can't offer any response to your specific recommendation since it's not on the agenda, but let me say on behalf of the board that we appreciate your efforts and all the efforts of retirees that you've given to this community and to our students, and we appreciate the interest and the attention that you've brought to this issue and meeting with the superintendent, and appreciate you being here tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Jenkins.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Jenkins. I'm a first grade teacher at Page Jackson Elementary School. I'm here tonight to ask that you consider making an amendment to the leave without pay policy. I'm having my second child September 13th, and I'm going to be out on maternity leave for 10 and a half weeks. At this point, as the policy stands, you have to exhaust all of your days before you can go on leave without pay. That means in November when I return, I will have no days, no sick days to use. You have to get first 5 days written permission from your principal, the next 5 days written permission from the superintendent, and the next 5 days written permission from the school board. I'm going to be coming back in November with an infant and a 3-year-old, and I know there's going to be days that I'm going to have to not be at work. So I just wanted to ask that you consider making an amendment to the policy for maternity leave employees so that when I return to work in November, I can take care of my family as well as my job. And just that, you know, the days, either way, you're going to get paid for those days. So why couldn't I take 10.5 weeks of unpaid leave and still have my days when I return so that I can put them into the system like I always do and get my sub set up for days that I wouldn't be able to go to work. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Gibson, just a matter of clarification for the board. We recently reviewed this policy. Is it still out on review, or have we already approved?
The personal leave of absence policy?
Yeah, we haven't looked at that recently?
No, sir,
Okay.
that was not the one that was out on review. We do, however, have a separate leave designation of board-approved personal leave of absence that does not require that you utilize all of your leave.
Okay.
It has different parameters, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Gianni? I'm sorry? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the rest of the board. My name is Bobby Giannini. I am the senior class president of Jefferson High School. Along with me, our lovely senior class treasurer, Jordan Phillips. I sent a letter in earlier this summer imploring the decision of the school board to change the date of graduation for Jefferson High School due to its conflict with the state track meet. And instead of rereading the points I've made there, I hope, along with my colleague here, to bring a voice and a face to the problem at hand. To begin, I have to state, it can often seem that high school is a lot smaller than what it is to us with people such as you with more wisdom and experience, but for us high schoolers, this is kind of all we know, and this is the pinnacle of our senior year of graduation and state track accomplishments. This is kind of it for us. To achieve, first of all, graduation for anyone is a huge success. I'm sure as representatives of the education system, you see all of the hard work that goes into achieving such a feat. And then on the sports side of things, it's not just about you. When faced with a choice like this, it is very difficult. Even for someone who has such an important moment as graduation, you always have to put the team first, and we can both speak from experience of that. On top of that, you can't also just factor in the choice of a student. You think, well, this kid, you kind of just got to make a decision. You have to grow up, you have to face the facts, face the music. But oftentimes, parents can get involved with this and the rest of the extended family. They wait for, over 10 years to see their children finally graduate. For many, it's the first time someone in the family has graduated. But when a student is so in love with an event and they've reached such a high level of achievement for it, such as state track meet, it's very hard to pull away from that factor, and for that, many families are torn between this decision and can lead to a lot of stress from that. And then, on top of that, just the sheer moment of it. What does this all mean? At the end of the day, it seems like a simple choice, but for many, it means so much more than that. Every single graduation that we have helped put together, whether we were freshmen cleaning up trash or helping hand out diplomas, I've always been personally moved to tears. And I know that's a personal thing to put out there, but I just would like to emphasize that it would be a lifetime regret for any student to miss such a momentous occasion that an amazing school in this amazing county could put on for that. And for that, I would request any alternatives. Both Jefferson and Washington High School, our sister school, are extremely flexible to any changes made, and we are happy to communicate with the board on any means necessary.
And we personally are both on the track team, and past years it's been very difficult for the seniors to have to decide whether or not they want to go to graduation or go to the track meet. And personally, I would want to go to my senior graduation, and it's just, we want to be the voices now to try to make a change now, so future classes don't have to go through having to decide whether they go to their senior track meet or they go to their senior graduation. So we hope that we can be the change for future.
And if not, as years to come, start the conversation moving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here, and Since this item is on the agenda for tonight, so we will be discussing this if you happen to stay. Let me add, first of all, that we may have more experience than you, but we don't doubt your wisdom, so nor should you. Any questions for them? I know we'll be discussing this later, but I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Do you hold a position, a class office position?
Yes,
or-
class president for myself and then treasurer for Ms. Phillips right here.
And how long have you been on the track team?
Track team, I've been a whole high school careers for both, and I've started since 6th grade when it was first offered.
I've been in track since 6th grade, and we both have been varsity runners since freshman year. And we both made it to states since freshman year.
Yes.
So not to brag or anything, but
Yeah.
we'll probably make it this year.
Nothing wrong with well-placed confidence.
No, that's good. Confidence.
We think you will.
Thank you. Jefferson County.
Thank you. Judy Price?
Hello, Board. I'm Judy Price. I have 3 minutes, and I'm going to try to squeeze 2 things in, so I'm going to talk really fast. I have a son who just graduated in May from Washington High School, and for his senior pictures, he had Marlene Lowe, as everyone did, both Jefferson and Washington, and I included a copy of their order form from last year, because if you go to their website, you can find one for this year. Last year, I was very disappointed to find out they did not offer a download of his photos. No high-resolution download on CD. If we wanted his photos, we had to get them as prints. I have been to many photographers over the past several years. That is very archaic. She told me if I wanted something electronic, I could take a picture of it with my phone. So I'm also including, I'm going to leave these for you, this is the price list for O'Rourke, which is where some of the Berkeley County schools have their photos taken. They do offer high-res print, and the pricing is much better than what we get with Marlene Lowe. Now, I know we do get a kickback from this, as do all schools with photos. I'm curious to see if we bid this out every year. Do we have an RFP process? Who is on that committee who decides that? Is it consistent between schools? The fact I couldn't find it online, does that mean that Jefferson pays different than Washington? I think that's a concern. And it also extends to all things senior, meaning yearbooks and caps and gowns. Are we consistent between both schools? Who makes those determinations? Is it the principal of each school? Is there a committee between the 2 schools? Do you guys do that? If it is not, I would like to propose that we make it so. And if we have not put this out to bid, I think that we should, because we need to ask ourselves, are we offering the parents what they want? Have we asked them? Does anybody else want this other than me? Is anyone else having issues affording some of these photos? $40 for an 8x10, does that seem a little crazy to anybody else? I'll leave these for you guys so you can take a look at some of the pricing. The second thing is about live grades. As a parent of a recently graduated senior, the most important thing on live grades for me to see is what his grades are and what his GPA is, and neither is on there. If you look at the list from the year, it has first 9 weeks, second, third, fourth, and his semester exam. While that's interesting to know, I'd like to know what the final grade was. Final grade is not on here, nor is his GPA. So anybody with high schoolers can tell you that we watch this pretty closely, because most scholarships are dependent upon what their GPA is. And I know my son, if he just tried a little bit harder, he could have gotten the next level up to get more money from WVU. I'm not saying you would. I know him. But I could have at least held that over his head to say, if you could just do a little better. Now, I know how to do the formula. I know how to get out the calculator, and with the piece of paper, I'm smart, I can do that. But kind of defeats the purpose of having it online so we can do it. And I know all of this stuff exists in a database somewhere. So can we just do a query and tie it in and decide this, have the final grade and the GPA? Thank you.
Ms. Price, thank you. And would you please, could you drop this information with Mrs. Horner? Thank you. You've brought some interesting questions to our attention. Mr. Hushin.
talking slow. Just got back from a week in Alaska.
Well, you can stay at your seat. You deserve to sit down.
Oh, that's okay. Actually, I don't have an awful lot to say. These two young people stole some of my thunder. I think they presented it very well to you all. I think you need to take it under consideration. First of all, Scott, thank you for the email to my son this morning. Appreciated after the letter that he sent you. With what's gone on, I think there were only 4 or 5 other schools in the whole state that might have stood for graduations down there. But 2 schools from this county. To me, that's unacceptable. To watch these kids stand down there and not be part of their team. They're part of the team down there, but they're not part of the team back here. I also understand, hi Laura, been a while. How's Austin doing? But good. I also understand that there was a very touching celebration or graduation ceremony for Sam Craig at graduation. I don't know how many of the board members were at graduation. Any of you at graduation? Are you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were.
Yeah.
But also nothing mentioned at all about the track team being in Charleston at that time. Not a word. My son was there, so I'm relying on his statements. I think, if I'm correct, the girl that won the pole vault from Washington High School didn't stay for her award because she had to hustle back to try to get back for her graduation, which happened to be in the evening. So I don't think that's right either. I had 2 graduates. So my wife and I had to split. I went to Charleston, she stayed here for the other. It made it difficult. I know this is all in the past, but I do think that you can correct this. My understanding is that the state track meet schedule is the same, or it's posted for 5-6 years in a row. So you sure can get around it. I have another granddaughter that graduated this year down in Virginia. It was on a Tuesday morning. Some people will say, well, geez, you can't get grandparents or other people in from out of town. This isn't about the grandparents and the other people. It's about these students. And I think you should accommodate them first. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thanks again for your
Yes, sir.
email.
That concludes citizens' comments. Again, thank you all for being here and participating. It is very important and enlightening that we hear from you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tony wants to know if you get
Madam Superintendent, consent agenda?
Yes, sir. I have a few corrections to the consent agenda. First, removal of number 5 from the consent agenda. Second, on item 11, the removal of Miss Heather Roque as one of the substitute clerks. And finally, number 19, we have, after a search of 13 and a half months, we have at long last come to the end of the search for a new director of transportation, and I will allow Mr. Dingus to introduce them.
I'd like to introduce to you tonight.
He has a special joy.
I do.
Being filled.
After 13 months and a half months, I have a real special joy to announce Joyce White. Joyce has been with us before. Actually, Joyce was my son's second grade teacher. So that is wonderful. This is her 28th year in education. She was a teacher in Jefferson County for 15 years. She's worked at Blue Ridge and North and South Jefferson, where she was my son's second grade teacher. She also is the proud mother of a graduate from Jefferson High just a couple years ago. And before this, she was an assistant principal, and director of transportation in Morgan County. In Morgan County, she did 2 jobs. She was director of transportation and director of maintenance for the past 5 years. She was also the safety director in Morgan. And she wanted to say that she can say this herself, she was very excited to be the new director of transportation.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Quite pleased that you're here.
I look forward to it and I'm ready to begin, so I'll join you tomorrow.
Excellent. Well, let's get this vote then. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Is there a date that says TBD?
To be determined. All right.
It really is.
It really is tomorrow.
Okay.
Good.
That was our
7:25.
negotiation with Morgan County, who's been very gracious and cooperative. And she'll start tomorrow, and when they're able to hire a replacement, we'll swap back sometime so that she can go back and train them. So, as always, we try to work collaboratively together, even when circumstances change between our employees' lives where they move from one county to another. They're all our kids.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Ms. White, congratulations and welcome back. Where are you? There you are. Yes, welcome back to Jefferson County. We look forward to having you. Ralph, you can take the rest of the night off. Unfinished business. Action on approval of the 2017-18 school calendar.
Yes, sir. So all of you have 2 pages in front of you. First, you have a synopsis of the issues, and second, you have a proposed calendar. And I will go through them for the benefit of the audience, although we did a presentation of this back in beginning of June on this matter. But
is there anything that, I don't know, anything we can put up so that people can see it, or is it, if we can't, that's okay.
You could. But it's actually fairly simplistic.
Okay.
So basically, there were several. The board has already adopted a calendar, which has been approved by the state of West Virginia. However, in the manner that West Virginia politics often works, after the calendars were approved, the legislation voted to change the rules about calendars and what could be done with them. So some of the important changes we've advocated for several years that we needed more flexibility in our calendar. So the primary things that changed were, number 1, we had a rule hard and fast of 180 days. If you missed a day, you made up a day. Didn't matter how long or how short your school day was. And our argument was, you set a standard for how many minutes there should be in a school day, how long children learn. Whether we do longer days or more days, for us, our children have one of the longest school days in the state, quite frankly. We exceed the state's minimum by 32 days because the instructional minimums, like a school day for elementary school, has to be 5 hours and 15 minutes long. Ours is 6 hours and 40 minutes long. You add that up over a year, we're giving kids a lot of extra education. And our point was, Jefferson County should be able to decide how best to use that for children and for teachers. And luckily, our legislators listened, and were very supportive. So we now have the ability to apply what some people would term banked time. Your day's longer, so you're saving up all of that time. And we can do that in a couple of ways. First and foremost, up to 5 days we can use for inclement weather and for closures. The state also allows school systems to submit a plan for alternative education, where basically we could turn in a plan that says students are taking their laptops home in their backpacks and we'll be out for the next 2 days for snow, but they'll be doing activities and turning them in when they return. Or we're assigning these materials that we've gone over in class. These students will bring these back. Those count. It allows us to do that as well. It also allows us to plan up to 5 days in which students aren't present, and the county board is using that for activities for educators to improve instruction, i.e. staff development. There have been a lot of changes in curriculum, a lot of changes in testing, materials, technology changes at a breakneck pace, and we expect our teachers to keep up with it. But currently we have 1 day that we allow teachers staff development to train them on all of the new technology, new curriculum, new books. They get 1 day. So the last thing that changed of significance in that code was that the state also mandated 2 additional faculty senate days. It was previously 4. It is now mandated to be 6. So the staff made several suggestions for calendar adjustments. One of those is the addition of 2 full staff development days. We currently have October the 20th. The recommendation is that we add December 15th and February 16th as 2 staff development days. Those dates were chosen based on the polling of the staff about their preferences on time and semester breakups of those. Basically having the student performance data in particular to be able to go through it and use that in the staff development to drive the next set of instruction. The next suggestion, i.e. mandate, is that we have 6 full faculty senate dates, August the 18th, October the 20th, December the 22nd, February the 2nd, April the 27th, and May the 30th. After polling parents, all of those will be 2-hour early releases. Parental preference is to have a 2-hour early release over having a delay. Parents, it's a lot more difficult for parents for childcare, for their jobs, when we delay school by 2 hours. It's easier for them if the kids get off 2 hours early. It's easier for them to find someone to watch them. And then finally, that we would use the additional flexibility for snow days to make adjustments for inclement weather closures, so that we aren't extending our school year into June, because we begin to see, once we go past Memorial Day weekend, we see significant drops in our attendance. And then we get held accountable as a school system, because a lot of your ratings as a school system, your public grading, one of the heavily weighted factors of that is school attendance, and we get penalized if that falls off. So the further we go into June and the further our attendance falls, we get our ratings cut. So all of those were recommendations of the committee once the state had changed the rules and allowed those aspects to be brought in. Now, we had heard from several members of our constituency about the conflict on graduation dates. The current calendar that's been approved by the state of West Virginia for several years, we had been given the limitation by the State Department that approved the calendar that they would not allow us to hold graduation more than 5 days prior to the last scheduled day of instruction. We mounted a fairly vigorous is the right word for it, protest against that this year, because it is not in West Virginia code. It was simply the preference of the West Virginia Department of Education that we not do that. Their strong preference, and they have the right to approve our calendar, but we pointed out rightly that the legislature didn't mandate it, so what was their auspices for holding us accountable to that? And so this year, when our calendar was approved, that date was not within 5 days of the last date of instructions, the first time we've submitted a calendar, and it was approved, and they acknowledged our board's ability to do that. So that was a positive. Currently, graduation is set for May the 19th, the Saturday before Memorial Day weekend. That date was chosen once again after a survey of parents. We had provided a survey in which we asked questions about, would you rather graduation be on the weekday or on the weekend? Would you rather be on Memorial Day weekend? Would you rather? So we took all of those, and that's how the suggestion came about for the Saturday before Memorial Day weekend. That weekend is currently the scheduled weekend for the state track meet. We do have, and Miss Ogden very kindly procured for us from WVSSAC, the 5-year calendar for all of the state events. You know, and there are several of them in which we happen to be blessed to be in an area that has an outstanding both academic and extracurricular band arts programs. Also in this 2017-2018 school year, the baseball regionals are May 21st through May 26th. Their state is May 31st through June 2nd. Basketball, of course, they're done by March. We have no conflicts. We have no conflicts with cheerleading. We have no conflicts with cross country because that's in the fall, none with football. Golf is done in the fall. Soccer is done in the fall. Really, our only 2 major sports that we have some conflict avoidance with are track and baseball.
What about tennis?
Tennis is May 10th through 12th. They finish theirs early. That won't work for us because we use Shepherd's Butcher Center as our graduation facility. When we did the cost analysis, it's actually cheaper they give us such a discount because they're already set up for their graduation. They don't have to reset everything up or bring in all the audio equipment. So it's cheaper for us to do that than to run it at our schools. But we have to wait until they've completed their graduation. So we have some limitations about how early into May we can go. Plus, I would also point out, if you graduate seniors, all due respect, senioritis, I graduate you on May 9th, I will not see you again after that because you are done. We do not own you. We have nothing.
I'm not suggesting having it the weekend of the tennis tournament. I'm just saying.
Right. No, I'm just pointing out all of the limitations. So we did contact the Butcher Center to ask them about availability. And certainly they are available the Thursday and Friday, May 17th and 18th, the 2 weekdays prior to our already published graduation date. They are available that Sunday. I'm just telling you availability, May the 20th. And they are available on Memorial Day weekend and the following Saturday, June the 2nd. Those were all of the range of dates that we checked because they were ones that had been discussed and not chosen in lieu of the May 19th date previously. But we went back to Butcher Center and asked them about all of those in terms of availability.
But the track meet is the 18th and 19th, is it not?
It is, yes, ma'am. It's both days, 18th and 19th. The regionals for them are 9th through 12th, so that won't be a conflict. But their actual meet is the 18th and 19th.
And that's states, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this year, when was our graduation this year? I know I was there, but was it Memorial Day weekend or the
Yes,
weekend
sir.
before?
No, it was weekend before.
It was the weekend before
It was the
Memorial Day
weekend
weekend.
before. And that conflicted with the state track meet.
Yes, sir, it did.
So were there other high schools across the state impacted? Or we were the only high school that had graduation on that date?
I suspect that we were not.
We were not.
Mr. had stated that we were 2 of the 4 to 5 that were impacted, because we had both Washington and Jefferson there, and there was 4 to 5 schools total.
When were the others having graduation? Later, Memorial Day?
Just,
I'm just curious. I mean, if we know.
some of them, I mean, Berkeley does them over a week or something.
Larger systems, and of course, there aren't a lot of larger systems in the state of West Virginia, but they run them during the week. And to Mr. Hussein's point, in previous school systems, yes, I mean, you know, the last school system I was in, we ran 14 graduations. We ran 2 a day for an entire week. It's the outside of that 5-day range, which the state's now acknowledged is the purview of the board. We don't have those dictates. You can hold graduation as early with certain constraints. We have to make sure the kids met the graduation requirements. You can't go too early because we have to make sure they met all the graduation requirements.
Right, I mean, we asked for the approval because it was 6 days instead of 5 days.
Yes,
If we go
ma'am.
15 days, they may say,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Right, I mean.
They do have the capacity to reject the calendar. Now, there's some discussion, as there has been before, of like, okay, on what grounds and what shall you do to us? I mean, at the end of the day, but you know, that's a conflict that you know, again, if it's kept within certain parameters, they likely have the same concerns that the board and our citizens do. We, number one, want to ensure that we give everyone enough time to meet their graduation requirements. We have a number of students that honestly, likely not you two, perhaps some of your friends, where to the last minute, to the last day, we are, you know, tutor test, tutor test, because I need you to pass this to be able to graduate. So late enough to capture all of those kids, and quite frankly, early enough so that, as teenagers sometimes do, individuals who make poor choices outside of school, say at the beach or at their friend's house, we don't give them so much time, free time on their hands, that something foolish happens and then they can't walk because they've made some mistake. So it's an art. It is.
And when we looked at evening graduation, we surveyed parents, there was a pretty strong...
The preference was for a weekend one. However, my first year here, we had evening ones. We had a Thursday and a Friday. The complaint at that time was, as Mr. Hussein noted, that people who wanted to attend graduation from a distance had to take off work. And so we received some complaints about it. Regardless, we achieved no perfection on this side of the veil. You know, we had folks who, hey, I don't want to have it on the weekend. I want to graduate my kid so that then we can take off for the weekend and all go together to a graduation party or to a beach weekend. Or we did, I will say, the thing that we received the strongest pushback against was, please do not have it on Memorial Day weekend. People didn't like the fact that we took up their weekend with graduation because they wanted their kids to be graduated, and quite frankly, our faculty who've earned that time off with their families after a very long year are required to stay here. So that was the least popular choice of all of them.
So if I look on this, the only day that I can see that does not conflict, but it's still going to be an art, if you will, if you look at baseball, because regionals go to the 19th and states start on the 21st. But the 20th is the only date, unless you move it into June, that you are not going to conflict with something.
Now, I will say this, we did not put the 20th out as a date to folks because, to my knowledge, we haven't had graduation on a Sunday. There's nothing that...
We did register for yours on Sunday.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry.
No, please. Yeah, we welcome that.
Sorry about that.
No, that's quite all right. And again, if there aren't, I would certainly, for us to do 2 graduations on a Sunday, again, there are a lot of sensibilities around respecting people's religious preferences. They would need to occur, you know, afternoon and evening. I don't No.
We'd have to talk
We would-
through how closely we can put them together, because if States starts on the 21st for baseball and they have to travel to Charleston, they're gonna wanna leave on the 20th. So if we put a graduation for Jefferson at 6 PM or Washington at 6 PM, and then one of the other two teams ends up making it, then.
None of them's perfect.
Right, none of them is perfect. I mean, if we could do like a 12:30 and 3, or 3:30, you still have drive time to graduate and get out of here and go. But it's
I
gonna be
would
tiring, but
Yeah, I
you
would
won't be
certainly
driving
say
with
it would
you a
need to be
bus.
afternoon. It would need to be like a 1:30. Just you have to give people time to get back from their,
Right.
whatever their religious practice is, and get there. And still, there's going to be some conflict, seating and parking and all of those issues. And then we have to have time to turn it around for us to have, as you saw, we're getting very large graduating classes because, people who've come before us have done a great job of administrating this place, and people want to be here because it runs well, because we do well, because we do great things for kids, so we're more popular. But when you're churning out 350 kids out of graduation, all of those people leave a trail.
Yeah.
One must erase that trail, get them all out the door,
Before you
clean
can do
up,
it
set
again.
everything else up. I mean, you can't put an hour in between them. It's not physically possible. It's not safe. So we
So-
would need a couple of hours to clean everybody out, clean the place. You got to change the colors, heaven forbid. You run something red, white, and blue at JHS, and it's on. It's gonna be a meltdown, So we trying to respect everybody's sensibilities.
How many kids did we have that graduated during the track meet this past year? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't have the actual number of
think,
kids who were, but I can get that for you.
I mean, the kids that were on the team,
Right. I mean, is there a way, I see that you have under option number 5 or 6 or whatever it is, to Skype in those kids to graduation. So if you are the class president, you could speak to the class still from Charleston. I mean,
That's something that I've spoken with Rob about, and we can explore that based on, because we have the technology here, we would have to look at what they have on the other end, because we don't control that end of things. But we have the capability to be able to do that, to have them participate electronically. If there aren't, again, we're trying to give the board and the public, we will never make everybody happy, but, our goal is always, the most people that we can. So we can explore whether or not, we can do
And
it
the
on
least
our
impact
end.
for those
The
that we
question
can't.
remains about whether that they can on that end.
it's the state capital, you would think.
I would think, but again, once again, the facilities themselves, if you're running in the morning, or in your graduation is an hour, like, where do I have to get you to? So I'm just being honest that we haven't worked out all the logistics and having discussions with WVSSAC on that end about how we could accommodate that, but we have the technology.
Right.
I just think, though, if we have the dates and we know how we can avoid the dates, I mean, yes, it's gonna be difficult to try to find something else, but if it was my kid, that would not be good enough. Like,
Oh, I know, you don't
know
want to
what I
have to
mean?
choose.
Right. And I don't think they should have to if we have the information ahead of time and we can change it.
But if you look at the options to change it, they all conflict with something.
If we moved graduation to the following week of Tuesday and Wednesday night, does that conflict with anything? The 22nd and 23rd,
Baseball.
Regional baseball,
regional baseball? Where is regional baseball?
the 21st to
Where?
the 26th. It doesn't say at this point.
depends on who's playing.
Oh,
I
of
think.
course, yeah.
I mean, what is the hesitation with Sunday? Like, what's the thought with that? Or the,
I thought you said, or someone said, that if you had a team that needed to be somewhere on the 21st.
right, which I'm thinking very well could happen in either one of our cases, but if that's the case, would it still be the best option to where everybody could attend graduation and then get to where they need to go?
Don't worry
Rather
about-
than missing it altogether?
That's pushing it a long way for an 8 hour, for a six.
Sure is.
For a six, at least
Yeah.
6 hour trip.
I mean, I'm assuming if it's in Charleston, everything usually is that far away, but.
Is there a way to get some input from a child that's already been through this? Like, I know you were talking about the pole vaulter, Lauren Zaglifa. I know her entire family went down to Charleston and they did her graduation down there. I mean, I know you don't want to pick and choose. I get that. And we're trying to figure out the best way so that you don't have to. And if we did it electronically, which still isn't the same as being there, I mean, I know some grandparents and everybody else watched electronically and it's still not the same as being there. But if that's the best Band-Aid we could do for this year, but also getting some input from kids that have gone through it, made the choice, and see how they feel, hindsight's 20/20.
We certainly can. In all honesty, I think every kid's situation and family and their sensibilities are different.
They're going to be a little different.
Right. Just
Yeah.
some of, and again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's
And then the two-child parent that has to divide and conquer for graduation, that's not ideal.
Made that choice.
right.
My grandson made that choice. And you're asking about, and there were several others that made that choice. Some of the students made the choice to stay and actually cost the team points in a year when that team might have been eligible for state championship. It would have cost the team the state championship. And I think that's part of your accolades also with the school system. Sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Well, if we again, we have very limited options here, and of course we have the 350 and some students to consider. Sunday might be a possibility.
Yes, there's nothing that prohibits the board from making that choice, and Shepherd conveys that it is available. And again, our goal, we have a couple of goals. Number one, as far as getting the calendar out, we made a commitment, and as you know,
Right.
we worked really
Yes, you did.
hard.
Thank you.
Took a long time to get all three counties to sort of set this regional idea
Right.
of let's all commit to this is the week we'll start, this is when we'll have spring break, this is when we'll do Christmas, and and they're reasonably close. Our start dates, our end dates, our spring break dates, we all agreed on some ground rules. So we kept those solid. The addition of the 2 staff development days, our desire is to get that information out to parents because they have to plan for childcare. Now, I didn't mention it, but Dr. Hetzel worked very hard, contacted all of the childcare providers in the county, and they are willing to offer a special discounted package for Jefferson parents for childcare on those days. Because if they're not in days that we would normally take off, parents, who work, we want to be sensitive to that. They were willing to offer a special discounted package. Oh, you only need these 2 days because that's when, you weren't necessarily planning 6 months ago to do this. The more notice we can give parents, the better. So we want to send them out. Here's the calendar with these 2 new staff development days because we now have the power to do that. And here are all of the places that offer a special child care package on those dates. I would, again, the more you break information up and you send out one notice and then you change something and you send out a notice, you lose people. Our preference would be to send out an amended calendar and do it once and have everything, but there is nothing, we already have an approved calendar from the state. There is nothing that says, can you legally wait 2 more weeks if you need more information from me? Yes, you can. The longer we wait, you'll simply hear perhaps a little more feedback from parents about it's August and I'm finding the dates that we're adding are in December and February. Okay, so there is plenty of time, but graduation is something people plan for far in advance. So the sooner we let people know.
Well, I think we need to bring up too, to be clear, if we do it on the 20th at some point, the 21st to the 26th are regionals, not state. So they probably would not have to. Am I correct on that? If it's regionals, they would not have to go as far?
Yeah, because it's regional, so
It would be Hubbardsville,
Fairmont,
Martinsburg,
maybe.
somewhere in this region. So we're talking not a very long distance of travel on that night to get to where they want to go the next day. It's not states, it's regionals.
Backing up one step though, December 15th, is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
right in the middle of exams? Is that an issue?
Not according to our teaching staff, no.
And what
But
is
it
that?
gives them an opportunity at the end of close to the end of the semester for intervention programs for students and for making adjustments, is their thought.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because normally that's the week that they do exams.
It also falls, it looks like, on a Friday.
On a Friday, which was the
afternoon, so
goal.
it would be, if it was a I think it'd probably be a makeup day.
It's a full day.
To her point, for exams, it wouldn't be an initial day of exams. We strongly discourage schools from doing initial exams on Monday and Friday, but it's very much so Friday because absenteeism rates are high. It's often a makeup day if someone did it during. And again, that was out of concern for our parents because in all honesty, when we put staff development days on Fridays, we have higher rates of people who use their leave because they, like parents, want to spend time with their families and they have an opportunity to take an extended weekend. And so we do lose some folks to that, but it's a lot easier for parents if we put them on Fridays and they can make a long weekend, and we just have to trust our staff and their professionalism to come in for the staff development, not use their leave to do that.
Another question I had about the calendar. Originally, we have like President's Day, Snow Makeup Day number 1. So will President's Day be, say, Snow Makeup Day number 6?
Again, we don't, depending on the date of the snow, we're highly unlikely to have got, if we get 6 days of snow by then. Because remember, we can use 3 of the snow makeup days, and then we can use up to 5 more if we have an alternative instructional program.
Right.
Now, since they passed this, after our teachers were gone, for us to be able to sit down with the instructional staff and create, if you come up with alternative instruction for those days, that program has to be approved by the State Department.
Is that different than the 300-page packet or whatever it is, or is that what that is?
I will be interested to see what it is because it is new. But yes, it is similar in concept in that you are turning in a plan for your school system, K through 12, for alternative instruction. How are we guaranteeing that kids who aren't sitting at school are going to get this equivalent academic content? Some schools have done backpack programs where they're putting books and pre-made packets, the students, and instructions, and their teachers are preloading video of themselves, and the students can watch it and take notes and do things like that. All of that has to be planned and approved by the state before you can use those 5 days.
So I guess what I'm asking is, are we going to change that though? Like as a parent, if I'm looking at that and I see Snow Makeup Day number 1, if it still says that now, I'm not, like, we at least have to change the number on
The number on the
draft.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I had the same question, and I'm still confused. You will still, though, everyone will know if what day is proposed to be made up.
And again, for the first 3 days, there is no required makeup
Right,
at all.
because
So we'll
we've
at least say
banked.
Because we
because
banked
have
that
saved-
time.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And we have the potential
Well,
of
where do we
additional
go with the
ones.
other 2?
The staff development, sir.
Okay.
Those 2 full days of staff development.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
And so
sir.
now we have a total of 3, right? Because we specifically
Because we
added
already
one
had
ourselves
one,
last
we
year.
already had one in existence
Right.
that was already time that was given to teachers, yes, ma'am. So we have 3 total during the school year.
So if we bank that time, if we bank that 3 days' time, and then don't use it, do we lose it or do we keep it?
It doesn't carry over from year to year. That's a great question. That's a great question, but no, it doesn't carry over from year to year.
Make no.
But, okay. So you need us to, we need to approve these recommended changes.
That is the request, again.
And then
in
the question is, in addition to the calendar adjustments here, are we going to make any adjustment to graduation that is currently scheduled for back-to-back on Saturday, the 19th, like we did this year?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And if we were to consider a change to that tonight, is that a change we could make, or would you have to do some further checking and to bring it back to us?
That is a change that you could make, as always, anytime the board changes, subject to WVDE's approval,
Yeah.
but none of those changes are outside of WVDE's parameters that they've already established, so there's no reason to believe that they would reject them.
Well, but I'm also thinking about availability of the space.
We've already checked the Butcher Center, yes, sir. It is available on the dates that we give you here for consideration. We've already checked the availability with them.
And again, so the 18th is a conflict with scheduled sports activities.
Yes, sir.
All of them are conflicts except
All
the
of them.
20th.
What about the 2nd?
That is baseball.
Okay. Well, it makes it pretty simple.
I don't know, got me confused.
So,
I'm not ready to vote yet.
I mean, I think all of us are extremely empathetic to the concerns of the students and families that hope to be representing their schools and their county and state athletic events at that time. I assume we don't have any other band or other performances going on at that same time.
No, sir, we have no other conflicts on the 20th,
Yeah.
likely
And
because it is a Sunday.
as is historically the case, the West Virginia Scholastic Athletic Association doesn't really consult with schools and the boards when they're...
There was talk that they moved the state track meet to Memorial Day, and then I guess somebody complained or they voted or something, and they moved it back to the original day.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
I think we send out emails from now on to all the principals in all the counties asking that they move all of those activities to Memorial Day weekend. That would make a lot of sense. So
It
it would not conflict with anyone else's calendar.
Unless we had a baseball player that ran track. That would.
There you go.
And then I'm buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah, and if we do the Thursday, Friday, we also conflict with softball
Yeah.
And track.
and
And again, if the board has some significant hesitation around a proposal of, because I don't think that there's any conflict or concern about the staff development days, the faculty senate days, any of the instructional things that we've done within the calendar to help support our teachers and our students. It appears at this point the only remaining concern is graduation.
So let's, let me ask then the board, does the board have any concerns or with the recommended changes to the calendar with the exception of graduation?
So if that is the remaining conflict, it appears that the only option based on your discussion, if you are to contemplate changing it, and again, if you were to change it, the only one that doesn't trigger a further athletic conflict is Sunday, May the 20th.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
I would make a motion to amend the calendar to change the graduation date to the 20th.
We
So
have a
is-
motion. Do we have a second?
To go to Sunday, both on Sunday?
As to not
Second.
conflict with anything else.
Okay, we have a second. So discussion?
My only hesitation there is changing it for the entire community with no notice or input or anything after doing the survey that we did, asking when they preferred it to be, and then all of a sudden, in one meeting, boom, it's changed to a different day. I mean, that would be my only hesitation. Is there a way that we can approve the first two things so parents can get these dates on their schedule and then see what we can work through to satisfy graduation date? I mean, just not, can we just put it out without, to be determined, or, I mean, I don't know.
To answer your question, we can do a couple of things. We can, because there's a difference between our public notice to parents and our submission to WVDE for approval.
Yeah, I'm not
So-
concerned about that yet.
Right, so we can send a
Right.
notice out to parents that says, the board has approved, these 2 full staff development days, your children will be off of school, our teachers will be training, here are all of your options, here are the early release days this year, because those are changes as well, because there used to only be 4 and now there'll be 6, which we don't have a choice on. So we can do an announcement out to parents about those and give them that information. To your point, if you would like us to further poll parents, they're not paying nearly as much attention to us during the summer. However, we can get out through Facebook, through our website, through a school messenger. The currently published graduation date conflicts with some of our athletic events. The board wants to explore people's willingness or interest in changing the dates. Here's the proposed alternative. Would you be in favor of this, yes or no? I can create that tomorrow and push it out and give you 2 weeks until the next board meeting. And then at that board meeting, you can come back with that information, vote on the graduation dates, and then we'll have to do another push out to parents of, here's the graduation date we decided on, and then tie all that up and send it up to WVDE. Can I do that? Yes, I can.
I know it's just one more thing to do.
It's
but
okay.
Actually,
That's 2 more things to do, and I would be inclined to say, and then we'll come back to Mrs. Ogden's motion, but if that's the will of the board, I would recommend that you delay consideration so that there's only one communication to parents, both that this is what we're proposing and we need feedback on graduation date, so that you're only talking calendar once instead of twice. But
And we can certainly do that.
now, having said all that, the next board meeting, I guess we would have a board meeting, am I right? Let's see. The 14th? So it would still be before school starts, and everyone's going to be focused on, at that time.
People will be paying a great deal of attention to us at that time.
Yeah, great deal of attention. But,
I personally feel like if we were moving it to a different weekend,
yeah.
then I can see where that would be a much stronger issue. We're not moving it to a different weekend, we're moving it to a different day. So a family that's coming in, you're still going to be there. You're just going to graduate the next day. It means maybe you have the party on Saturday because you're spending the night and seeing the student graduate on Sunday. But it's the only thing that doesn't conflict. And I don't know what other options we might have. So I think
Right.
by then putting out a survey and saying, what do you think? We're going to get a whole bunch of,
And we're going
you
to
know-
frankly hear from a lot of people that say, well, the Sunday's a travel day.
right. Or, well, my kid doesn't run track, so too bad. Or my kid doesn't
Right.
play baseball, so too bad.
Yeah.
Or my, and I get that, but I think if you're really
But
looking
you know,
at
this
doing
is
what's
ultimately
good
for
for
the
all of the
students.
students,
Yeah.
that's the only day that all the students have an opportunity to be a part of their graduation at the Butcher Center with all of their peers standing on the stage and all the parents there. I mean, that's how I personally feel about it. I get it's trust me, all the Memorial Days, we went through 2 Memorial Days, I had to graduate a student. That wasn't fun either on a holiday weekend, but I felt bad for all the teachers and people who had been there forever. But we did it, and there was no conflict.
Any thoughts, Mr. Cable?
It's one of those things where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, so, we try to make the best we can.
And, Ms. Skinner, I certainly hear your concern about, we like to communicate, we like to be transparent, but I also feel like we're kind of almost at the end of the rope and we need to make a decision.
Could we do it at the August 7th meeting, or is that still too long?
Is it?
Your meeting's the 14th.
So.
Our retreat is the 7th.
Oh, the 7th. Yeah, we do have a.
Oh, your retreat.
Oh, we could notice that.
Well, I think at this point, we still have a motion on the floor.
Right, we did have a motion
on the
which we
floor.
could vote down the motion. I mean, we can, you can vote it either way, but if the motion goes down, then I think we would consider putting all of this out for notice and input.
I think you might want to clarify, because in that motion, it had all of the suggested calendar adjustments. Did the motion include a change in the date or not?
Her motion was just to change graduation date.
And accepting all the other changes.
Okay. Just want to be clear.
Did you say accepting or accepting?
Accepting all the other changes, accepting all the other changes. Not accept this one, this one, this one.
So, yeah, it does make sense to, we appreciate members of the community bringing this issue to our attention. I wasn't aware, and frankly, a suggestion was made earlier. It would have been nice to have recognized those students who couldn't be at graduation because they were participating in school-sanctioned events. I had no idea. So, if we were to vote down this motion and then we come back with another motion, it does give us a little time to inform the community.
I mean, if we were moving it from a Tuesday to a Wednesday or a Thursday to a Friday, I think that's one thing, but I think there's a little more significance moving it from a Saturday to a Sunday.
Well,
Because of
that-
religious preferences, or because of travel, or?
All of the above.
I thought your other argument was stronger.
Which one?
About, the community's already been informed of one thing and now we're changing it on them. But
Well-
to me, graduation kind of trumps all else. And
Oh, I know, it's an important day. I mean, for, some of our kids, that's their lifetime graduation. I mean, it should be an important day. But if you're going to poll the community and ask, A through D, and then all of a sudden you throw in M, it just, without any community feedback or discussion. It just concerns me a little bit.
And I will say this board has, at least my opinion, this board has established a history of, through redistricting, through calendar, through every action that we've taken, there has been a plethora, to the point of pain, it said sometimes, and let me get your input, let me revise this, let me get your input, let me revise this. So other than the element of time for parents to plan for events that right now we are saying are in December, February, and sometime in May, presumably, you're talking another 2 weeks. You're not being forced to make a decision right now. And quite frankly, I would agree with you that your legacy of transparency and of community involvement, you may well end up in the same place, but if you end up in the same place after having kept your commitment to when I can, when I'm able to, there will be times when this board can't get community input for every single decision that you make and send out 100 surveys. But when you have the time and the ability to, you choose to, even though it's difficult. I mean, that's a legacy. That's how you.
And it's important, it helps us make informed decisions, but it's also not always the determining factor in the decision.
Yes, sir. And which is you may get information that runs counter to the decision that you want to make, and then you're going to have to make that decision anyway.
We might be right back where we are right now.
Sometimes don't ask for information that you don't want to know.
I know.
Lori, if you're willing to withdraw your motion, I'll withdraw my second.
The only reason I'm sitting here contemplating that is because honestly, there's nothing unless you can find me another date that there are no conflicts for students, that every student who wants to be there can be there. I don't know what else there is to discuss, and I don't know whether input that I would want. What other input do I need? If I'm looking at a date and there's nothing else I can find, unless we move it to June and hope kids don't leave for senior week, I don't know. I don't know what else there is, in my own opinion. And I love to ask people's opinions. I don't mind it all day long. But again, if their opinion is going to be, no, we still want to graduate on Saturday at the cost of some students, or we want to graduate on Thursday at the cost of some students, to me, that's not an option. That's not fair to the students. So to me, there is only one option, the option that does not affect any students, period. It's one day in their life, and they should not have to miss it. And I apologize for not knowing about the conflict last year. I never would have done that.
I had no idea.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody did.
No.
What was the baseball one? I'm specific.
It's they go to the 19th, and then they have regionals starting on the 21st.
Okay, when do they regionals then?
The 26th, I think.
And then states are the 31st through the 2nd.
So the only other option you'd have would be to go Tuesday the 29th.
What is there anything Memorial Day weekend? I know that what parents, because they're on the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend.
There's nothing other than
And again, that's
major parent
dead
complaints.
in the yes,
Yeah,
that's dead in the middle of
baseball.
Baseball's on Sunday. That's what I was trying to look at.
Yeah.
I shared earlier that that Sundays were done. It was the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. I'm sorry, my voice is going. I'm just sharing institutional because I was involved in from '81 through 2004 Jefferson, and they went to that Sunday of Memorial Day weekend because there was nothing then, and parents could still travel home on Monday because you had the Sunday the 20th just for sharing. If you have a graduation at 7 o'clock in the evening, you're not going to get kids out of there till 10, and if you have underclassmen that have exams the next day, that could impact them. I mean, you've got a lot of no-win situation. But now this young man said that you wouldn't have exams, correct?
I'm not going to put my own personal experience above those of who have made the schedule, but from my recollection, it was always the week before the last week.
So much has changed. That's why I asked him. A lot has changed.
I don't know. It could have changed from my perspective.
Well, Okay.
Tuesday, the 29th, you're gonna run into the boys having a leave.
For,
And then the other
Thursdays.
issue is we were pushing it this year to get the Frank Center for the overflow. I know CATF takes over that space, and if we were much later, we wouldn't be able to get that space either.
Call for the question, Mr. President.
yes, I think it's time for the question. The motion is to accept all the recommended changes plus move graduation from the 19th to the 20th. Is that an accurate statement? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
So the motion carries 3-1. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. I know that's not an easy call by any means, but new business.
Democracy is a beautiful, messy
That's
thing,
right.
isn't it? Hey, misfits. What?
Particularly when it's civil.
Actually, yes, sir. And having seen it when it is not so, it is a beautiful thing, and more appreciated than you probably know. Well done.
Yeah, this year.
Here, we have this OT first, then I have Hi.
Oh, hey.
How are ya?
How about some new business?
Wow,
Bring
new
some new business.
And I brought a friend today. If that stays put.
Hi, I'm Darlene Grimes. I'm one of the occupational therapists in the county.
Ms. Grimes.
And I am here to help Ms. Fitzwater. We're asking for a halftime, an additional halftime OT, and I'm here to help her support that.
And she is actually my lead OT and actually oversees my OT, my PT, and their scheduling and checks in on them. So to give her the credit where credit is due.
So anticipate some questions on this, so let's get a motion to approve.
So moved.
In a second. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay. What I've given you is the data that we have gone over again and again. We have spent several hours together going over and heatedly discussing things at times on what we can and cannot do. We went through actually exactly how many hours per month the OT have between the 5 of them, which is 26,514 minutes total, which includes the indirect minutes from our pre-K to 12. Going through that, I gave you a brief overview of exactly what is allowed through our minutes. It's about 1,850 minutes left for instruction a week and that to do also for travel, evaluations, and observations. To kind of cut this short for you, what we're left with at the end is an hour and 26 minutes for travel, observations, and performing evaluations in a 3-week period. We use 3 weeks because 5 out of our 10 months are 3 weeks long when you put in all our vacations. So on IEPs, we have to look at that, if that makes sense. On the next page, we've actually broken it down for you by school and then actually added the time for evaluations with going over that page for exactly they've done 116 evaluations on top of meeting their service hours. They've conducted, I guess if you want to talk to this, because I know you created this.
I would love to.
Okay.
Basically, what I'd like to say is we looked at minutes per week for all of the children that we serve and how that breaks down between the 6 of us that are present right now, the 6 OTs that we have. And with those minutes, basically everybody is at 79 to 80% productivity as far as direct services for the children that they are serving, okay? But then we had to also look at all of the other things that we are responsible for within that, the day of, or the school day for when the children are available. And so we did do 116 evaluations. That takes time. That takes time to meet the child, do the evaluation, gather the information about why the evaluation was even recommended. After that, we have to have a meeting with the parent to go over the evaluation. If they qualify, which 75 to 80% of our kids always qualify, then we have to have a meeting to add that. That all has to happen during the school day, and that adds to the minutes. So when we add all that up, and I was very minimal as far as meeting times and so forth, the amount of times that we spend in meetings. So then we added, besides the 79 to 80% direct care, there's another 12% of productivity that has to be added because of all the incidental kinds of things we have during that school day that we can only do during that school day. And so that brings our productivity up. That does not take into account our travel time. We have 23 locations for 6 people. We have, besides the schools, we have 2 daycares that are outside the schools. We do 3 homebound students that can't come to school. All of these things take time. So what I was hoping that I can impress upon you is minutes are one thing, but all of the other incidental things are things that we have to do and are responsible to do and love to do, but we need the time and the people to do it. So we're asking you to consider a half-time person to help us to meet the needs that we have currently. Last year, our pre-K program has exploded, and I'm sure many of you know that. We had, of the 116 evaluations, 33 of them were pre-K. We're going to have them for a while, we know that. And 17 kids we didn't even serve this year will be starting next year, this year coming up. So we're constantly treading water. And so I'm asking you to please help us not only not drown, but to be able to meet the needs of the children.
Thank you. Questions?
I do think that the board will continue to see a trend, as you've noted and as we've given you in the statistical analysis. We have some very large, very young classes coming up. Both our kindergarten numbers already at this point of the school year are higher than they were at this time last summer.
What I've been reading.
Significantly higher than they were last summer. We currently only have 4 elementary schools that have any capacity to take additional elementary students at all. At all. One student at all. We have greatly expanded our preschool program. We added 2 preschool programs last year. I believe we will be adding another 2 this year. Possibly.
We at least one.
At
we are
least
still
one,
in the search
possibly
for
another
one
2.
with the closing of the pre-K programs that have happened.
It's simply been, our growth is at the lower end with those students, and those students have a particular set of needs. Occupational therapy in particular, while kids are developing fine motor skills and learning handwriting, or when those OT needs explode and they tend to taper off after time as they reach middle and high school. That's not where our growth is. Our growth is with the much younger students, and so we anticipate the things in our programs that are geared towards them. You will begin to see a trend. As we see the data moving, we are trying to be proactive about both gathering, which is one of the things I deeply appreciate about Ms. Fitzwater and about her staff, is they really embrace the need to not simply talk about how I feel about these things.
Yeah.
I sit down and look at hard data, and when I see this coming and I see the needs increasing, I respond to it proactively. I communicate with you, and I'm able to substantiate for the taxpayers, this is exactly why we need this. So, thank you.
And we did at one point consider whether we should ask for a half-time or a full-time. And the data supported a half-time and whether it would be more cost-effective to go and ask for that we should do a full-time. On the last page, we did a cost analysis of that. And at this time, cost-effective-wise, it is more cost-effective for us to do a half-time person. That will meet our needs at this time. I'm not telling you I'm not going to be back next year. But, I mean, if we explode or another development goes up more quickly than we think, that may increase our numbers. But we did both do knowing that to make the most cost effective. And we played with numbers on quite a couple of occasions to show her what we needed to come up with to support what she was asking of me.
Well, I think you make a very compelling case. You say that we have 6 full-time currently?
Yes, sir.
And do we have any that are contract in this field?
We have one that is actually, we hired to replace her, and we just did hire a contract for a medical leave and hope that that person will return in a year.
And Dr. Gibson, I know I'm reminded of, maybe someone will remember, we had another need that came to us not too long ago, and we all agreed that it was certainly, standing alone, it was an important need, but we also thought that we needed to be looking at all of our needs for, I can't remember what the position was.
I do, sir. It was actually the speech-language pathologist had approached us because both Berkeley and Morgan offer
That's right.
significant
Thank you.
stipends for those individuals. They offer $8,000 per year. We do not. So at that point, that discussion was about an increase in compensation to maintain the same level of service for of students, simply to retain our staff. And at this point, we felt like that's an argument that, quite frankly, could be made for a number of our staff because of our recruitment issues. This differs in that it's actually increasing staff based on student need, not increasing compensation for individuals.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, sir.
And then, and again, coming to us like this, it obviously sounds like meeting student need that we should approve, but it has gone through before it gets here. You've evaluated based on all of the needs that this is the recommendation right now coming forward to us.
Yes, sir. We've instituted a process where no recommendation, and we are working very hard to enforce it, that no recommendation comes to the board until it's been presented at the leadership team, which includes the head of each one of the departments. So we have the joint discussion at that point. Mr. Blanc is in there for instruction, and Mr. Pettiford is in there for human resources, and finance is in there, and we review all of the data and say, okay, exactly what you're talking about. These are the needs that were expressed over at the transportation department and in maintenance and in HR. How does this offset against those? And we, if we believe it's a recommendation that could be supported, we send it forward.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
You'll be back.
Special needs operator. I thought we'd gotten rid of him.
Well, I've been here 30 years.
Yeah.
This next section is, again, this is a run that was approved on January 30th, 2017 for transportation for students to Brook Lane. In that, I believe what we said at that board meeting is that was till the end of this school year. Therefore, these students are still attending Brook Lane, and the need for this bus is still, again, needed this year.
The need hasn't changed at all, and the students haven't changed at all. We're hoping that, maybe in that short period of time, something could have evolved. It didn't, and their IEP still set it to go the way it is.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
So moved. Or second.
So you're extending what we had approved was through
that year.
That year.
Through the year.
It was the 16-17 school year.
And now we're asking us to approve it to extend it for
Yes.
this coming academic year.
Rather than placing special needs runs where children's needs change and they perhaps change facilities or they make significant progress and we can pull them back in, rather than making those permanent runs, special education is making an attempt to only approve them for the time period that they know that they need them reevaluate and then be able to change those. So you may see them with increasing frequency, but we're trying to convey to you these aren't new runs. We're only going to approve them for the time that we absolutely know we need them reevaluate, force ourselves to reevaluate,
Right. Good.
and then extend them if necessary. Again, all under the auspices of trying to be as efficient as possible and force ourselves to evaluate our needs.
Excellent. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Textbook adoption.
It's just asking for the board's okay to put an environmental science book on review for 2 weeks, then come back in 2 weeks after it's on review for probably pursue the adoption purchase.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
Is this going to go with the new testing and everything else that the state is changing to? I mean, does that have any impact? I don't want to buy a textbook that, I mean, it's earth science, earth science is pretty basic,
It's
but.
in lines with the state content standards. There are science content standards now. The test hasn't been totally developed at this time. So it's
The RFP that's been written for the test requires that the test align with the state standards, and the books are required to align with the state standards. So have they aligned the books and the test? No, but they are both in theory, they're not allowed to be on the book list for us to even select from. And the test, again, in theory, the RFP says they can't choose a test that's not already aligned to the new West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards.
So what do the state standards say about environmental earth science?
We could pull those up for you, sir. I don't have them off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'd like to see those.
Perhaps you'd like to be on the review committee. Then you could find out for yourself.
So this is just to go out on review?
Yes, ma'am. It's not a decision to purchase.
And is the committee here or anyone that?
no, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Do we have anything else?
A brief executive session on land. I do not anticipate a decision.
Any action?
No, sir.
Okay. Before we entertain a motion to move to executive session, any comments from the board? We do have a planning session scheduled for August 7th,
Yes, sir.
8:30.
Yes, sir.
Thank you and your team for pulling that together so quickly. Anything else? Going once, entertain a motion to move to executive session for consideration of land.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll take a 3-minute break.